Hey everyone, it is Tuesday and I am doing part two of Do You Need to Be a Realtor to Sell Real Estate? So I wanted to get back. Yesterday we got into being a realtor. Can you sell real estate? And I explained no, you do not have to be a realtor, you just have to have a license from the Real Estate Commission. So, getting back into the Realtor Association and why I have decided to not proceed with them after 24 years is because, and I think if you ask a lot of agents or brokers, you're going to find out that it's been a long time coming. Um, but I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the lawsuits against NAR. I think it was the Department of Justice that started bringing them, but it started with a seller in Missouri. And what happened was you need to understand the license laws and then what everybody else does or doesn't do. So, license law is there is no set commission, absolutely none. You can charge a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, 1%, 2%, 6%, 10%. It's totally up to what the seller or buyer is willing to pay and what you'll take, basically. So I think in 2008, when we had that bubble crash, the housing bubble that crashed, I remember seeing a lot of listing agents that were actually taking free listings. And the reason for that is the seller would not pay the selling portion or a commission for the selling portion, but he would pay a buyer's agent um, that portion. So what happened is a lot of buyer agents were putting in their emails and at the bottom, work with me, you can work with me for free, knowing that sellers always paid, or most of the time always paid, that commission. Again, nothing is set. A seller does not have to pay a buyer's agent. So when you are a buyer's agent, you are signing a contract or an agreement with that buyer that you're going to help them buy a house. And that contract agreement is between you and the buyer. So, it actually, in that agreement, says to the buyer that you're going to be paying me a certain amount of commission. Again, nothing set. However, what most people were saying was, "Don't worry, seller's going to pay it," because that's what was happening. But it's not the case. Seller um, down in Missouri was not explained all of this and said, "This is what you're going to be paying me. This is what you're going to be paying the buyer's agent," not knowing that he didn't have to pay it, not knowing there wasn't a standard and you could pay anything or nothing. Um, so what happened was, and it was a very big company, but he went to an attorney, filed a lawsuit. I believe that attorney, um, I'm not sure if it's a class action, but then everybody else started joining in. Again, people that or agents that were putting in um, their emails and work with me because it's free to work with me. It wasn't. You can't write that. It's not free. Because if the seller decides they're not paying, I'm not sure who's going to pay you. So, this was the issue. I think as agents, brokers, salespeople, I'm going to get into such depth that you're going to, know everything about real estate. Um, But when number one, when you're a broker in charge, not a broker, but a broker in charge, which means you can supervise other agents, you can have your own company. I think brokers in charge at a lot of places have hundreds of agents under them, and if they have not, when you take the course to you know be able to pass that course, to be able to be eligible to take your state exam. You know, there are some places that you're just being taught the laws, how to pass the test, and you don't know anything. You don't know anything until you really get into it, which is why it's hard for a lot of agents because you don't know anything. And if you have a broker in charge that has hundreds of agents under them, you're not going to get that one on one. A lot of companies say, here, you need to go on a team, here, do this, then start your own team. They don't get the one on one. They don't get, I always was fortunate in the companies I worked for before my own, is having great broker in charges. Um, so that was wonderful, and got that one on one. So um, I think, except for two companies, but at that point I was a veteran, didn't need them really. Um, so I think that's what happens. I think agents just, they don't know. I've had a lot of agents that when it's time to renew your license, um, they're like, oh, I gotta renew my license. Oh, I gotta do this. They didn't even understand what they had to pay and why they were paying it, which I had to explain to them. So that's the reason. Right before, I'm going to go back and forth, so I apologize. If you have questions or comments, you can always comment. Um, right before these lawsuits happened, we had a president, cannot remember his name off the top of my head, a president of the National Association of Realtors that um, was basically, I believe he was fired, um, because there was a lawsuit against him. I think it was sexual harassment, against people that worked at headquarters. Um, what so basically for years the National Association of Realtors, we would do ethics training and how to, be courteous and not talk bad about other agents or companies, or because it was, number one, um, it's really not professional because if you're going to be talking about other agents or other companies, you look like an asshole. Um, Number one. Number two is, so we had to do ethics training either every year or 2 years at that point. I think it's now every three. Um, but when you have a president, and nobody really went and talked about this because he was taken out really quick, and a woman, I wish I could remember what state she was from, came in temporary. After about 2, 3, maybe 4 months, six tops, she resigned. She resigned with absolutely, they said nothing to us about why she resigned. Obviously, it was something bad because somebody would find out. I'm not sure, but she was gone. They ended up hiring, or electing as president. He is a broker out of Massachusetts. Um, and I actually think I know him, but I think he'll do fine. But I think that, for me, the amount of money we paid per year for the National Association of Realtors, for the state um, realtor associations, for the local, for the MLS, it's all separate. Um, it was probably um, over $1,000 a year, and then you had quarterly fees. It was not worth it for the forms, or maybe it was, but I think I had had enough, between those issues, and then all of a sudden this thing. And what happened was, when they got sued, um, National Association of Realtors, which should be protecting us and helping us, settled. They settled the case, which is not right. It should never have been settled because this was one agent from a huge company that started it. A lot of other big companies were named in this lawsuit. So I think to settle because of that, because you got sued, the NAR. and along with these companies, I think is crap. I think it's crap. I think we pay enough. And you know what's going to happen when they settle? They're paying lots of money, millions of dollars. We're going to get hit with that. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If we're held to a higher standard as realtors and we pay into this and you should be protecting us, bullshit. Bullshit. You guys take it. Those companies should take it. I'm not paying for it, so no. So, um, that is that. As a seller, if I come to you, you do not have any set commission to pay. There is no set commission, never has been, never will be. I assume, but never has been. Um, you can, if I tell you my company policy is 6%. You can say, hey, can you do it for 5? If I know you're a repeat client, I'll probably do it. I'll probably do it for less. Um, you do not have to pay a buyer's agent. It's not your responsibility. It's the buyer's agent and the buyer to pay that. This is what's been happening. This is the issue. Um, this is how people have gone out and done this. So, um, that's that. If you have any questions, this was part 2. I think I am pretty much done with the realtor thing. Y'all know I still sell real estate. I'm licensed in 4 states, and let's see, I still have MLS. Not only is it a national, but we have access to international MLSs and brokers. It's pretty neat, and we have forms. I've sold, I think, since leaving the Realtor Association this year, I've sold 3 properties, had the forms. Um, Agents, the other realtors that I worked with were phenomenal. We had a great time, great buyers, great sellers. Um, so you know what? I know we can do it. Um, but I will get into another thing before I leave. Is one of the properties I sold um, was with an agent. The house was out in Newton. I just really think about what agents are doing, but the poor listing agent, we ended up getting the house, we put in an offer. Um, right before we were working on one. House had just come on. I found out from the listing agent that the seller didn't really want a lot of showings. So we were pretty much in. Um, as far as it was a full price offer, everything was smooth. Agent I know said, you know what, it's just come on, got to let other people in. Luckily for us, unlucky for the seller, is another agent showed up. A few hours later, I got a call and said, write it up, it's yours. She does not want any other showings because an agent went out, opened the door, or got in somehow. Maybe the seller let them in, I'm not sure. But, or the seller wasn't there. However, the agent left her buyer there in the house. Um, she just left. The neighbor watched. Seller came home and noticed something was off, and she's like, hello, hello. And somebody answered from her bedroom. Can you imagine how scary that would be? This was an older woman, um, had lost her husband, was all by herself. That's bullshit. As agents, you should be ashamed of yourself. We are it's not what we have to do. If that agent had somewhere to go, then don't schedule that appointment because it's who we have to protect as agents of a buyer is, you know what? You're not protecting, you can protect that buyer, but you don't let someone go into someone else's house. You know what? Have a little sense. Um, so that poor buyer heard that. And she said, hello. And the lady came out of the bedroom, master bedroom, and said, excuse me, who are you? And she said, I am the owner, who are you? That's bullshit. So that agent got a call, the listing agent, and luckily because of that, I mean, we got the house. So, if you're a broker, if you're an agent, if you don't have a broker in charge that tells you this, if it feels wrong, it is. So think about that. I will talk to you soon. Everybody have a great day. Thanks. Bye bye.